one is in like the work construction. He comes in like dum dum. He does like a big T-Rex. Then he does the last the way he gets his voice up. What was that? T-Rex.
Please no.
Okay. So, serious now, you ready?
Alright, let's see who can keep it serious longest.
Alright, it'll be me. I need a drink.
Alright, well then I won! We've got that! I won!
Yes, you did. Well done. Right, okay. So today the subject is going to be, there's so many cameras here. Right. The subject today is going to be trying to stay serious. What's going on?
It's on fire.
It was you.
Alright, we're starting to touch it.
I didn't say anything, so.
No, I didn't I think we missed that one.
Oh no, I'm going to have to restart these cameras in about 20 minutes time.
Man down.
Oh, you know when you start, you stop looking at me.
Right.
Just look over his shoulder. That's a nice rope.
Greg.
Are we good? Are we good?
I don't even know what they're laughing about.
I don't know, I'm just triggered. Oh, it's because you went, serious now. And then just went,
Let me just look
and then since then, it's just.
Alright.
What are we talking about?
Alright.
Supplements.
That was beautiful.
Good
Stay right in the camera when you do that. That's it. Today we're talking about grab that one. Grab that one. Today we're talking about
Supplements. I think that was
Supplements.
actually pretty good.
That was very good. Okay.
Insane.
Don't hurt feelings.
Right, okay, so today we're going to try and hold it together long enough to talk about supplements. I don't even know what's going on. Supplements are something that people try to jump on straight away. Oh my god!
Donkey.
He's lost it!
I'm going to wash my face and come back.
Wash your face!
I was all good, I look at Carl, he's sitting there like.
Oh, there we go.
Alright, back to supplements.
Right, okay. You good? Did it work? What did you do to your face? Rub the hell out of it or something. Look at his nose. Bloody Rudolph, I tell you.
Made me go again.
Right, okay. So today we're talking about supplements. So everyone that seems to get into the fitness industry or just in training in general, the first thing they do is jump onto supplements. They go down to the supplement store, go and get protein, pre-workout, and all sorts of other things. So let's just take our take. I know myself and Jake have done a video on this before, but our take on supplements. So I will chuck this one over to Robbie first, because we've spoken before, and we'll go around from there. So Robbie, you can hold on to that, or you can not. We don't even need to. So you got
chuck it there.
There you go.
Supplements. I guess I'll start off with the ones that I commonly take.
Yeah.
So the only ones I really take are creatine, vitamin C, magnesium, like a whey protein and a protein shake. And then there's probably only one more, but I can't remember. Fish oils is the only ones that I really take. Apart from that, I don't really take anything else. Just from my research into it, there were particular things that I found like you could easily become deficient in. So.
Oh, why are we laughing
I
there?
don't know. I like to think of you losing it before. What the hell? I was fine.
We're past that. Let's
Yeah,
go.
we're
Let's
past
move on,
it now.
man.
Yeah, carry on.
Don't bring us back to that. But yeah, no, like just a couple of things that I found from my own research that you could potentially.
I looked to my left and he was trying so hard not to laugh at it. I could see you go.
Contagious.
Stop! I just got good again.
Yeah. Supplements.
Oh, we starting from the top.
No, just I know what's wrong today. Like, so yeah, supplements.
Anyways, they're the ones that I researched that you could be deficient in, and so I just started to take them based on my own research.
Control yourself!
I'm controlling myself.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, serious.
Just go on without me, guys.
Why have we all lost it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so those ones. Yeah, so anyways, they're the ones that I take, and it was.
Oh wait! Look, Little Miss holding it together now. I know it's this. It's completely lost it. Go wash your face.
Who was it?
Oh, funny.
I guess I started taking those when I did my body comp. I just got suggested that I might become deficient when I came in such a low calorie deficit. The biggest one I found the improvements on was creatine and the protein, obviously get my macros up, but the fish oil as well. When I was having really bad or poor kind of like brain fog and especially because I was in such a deficit, just trying to go to bed, I found that one, when I started to supplement fish oils in, was huge, and because I didn't have a lot of fish in my diet usually. So it's kind of like if you don't have a balanced diet will provide everything you need, and supplements are always just that extra little bit. But how often or not do people not eat a balanced diet? So then it makes it tough, and that's where you might have to find other supplements to add in if you're, like, say, allergic to something. But yeah, I just try and eat as much of a balanced diet as I can.
Now, go wash your face. Go on, get out. Go wash your face.
It works.
Katie, over to you. What, do you use these supplements?
Yeah.
What do you use? Laughing guy.
Well, yeah, you give me some creatine, so I've only recently started trying out some creatine. Why are you laughing? Right. But yeah, so I've just started trying out creatine, so I can't really say much about that, but like I've been using protein for
Now, we're the ones
See, face wash, I tell you.
It works.
Okay, anyway, it does, yeah. Maybe we should just go.
Just wash your face before you eat.
Okay, no, well, and then I've been using protein for, like, protein shakes and stuff for probably more so since we took that last scan. Remember that last
Oh
scan?
yeah, that was probably 8 weeks ago now. It's been a little while.
Oh, it was
longer.
probably February, I think we went, because I took one of those ASN scans.
You've been twice though, haven't you?
Yeah, so I did my first one in October, and then the next one in, say, February or something.
That's right.
But my muscle mass was
Yeah.
it didn't change that much, and I was like, oh, I was feeling like it should have.
Were you
changed
eating
a lot.
at a surplus during that time?
Probably not.
No,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So then,
And because with how much you were training during that block as well.
yeah, that's it. So then that's when I kind of started bringing more protein in, because that's what Robbie was like. He was like, oh, you definitely need to up your protein. So using MyFitnessPal, I've really calculated my protein, because I went like 1.5
Times your body weight.
times my body weight.
Yeah, that was like when I was doing the bodybuilding prep. I looked into like a meta-analysis from like all the natural bodybuilding, and yeah, basically like had a set of macros that you should be hitting, and obviously the more of a deficit you're in, the higher your protein is, because you're just trying to hold on to it as much as possible. And so like I think for me, I try and get like 2.2 times my body weight, which is sometimes it's a lot of meat. So like having a protein shake is just so easy if you're 30 grams short and you just need that little extra. It just kind of fits into our lifestyles, especially on the go. But I mean, best world is you sit down and you can make yourself a meal, but you know, life gets in the way of that. So that's where supplements can help, I reckon.
I think, as you were saying before, it's the 1%. Like that's the thing. It's the cherry on top. Like you got to have everything below it first right in order to maximize what you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
Wash your face. Go.
It's still red as you're laughing.
Mate, oh, fire out. It was. I'm set for the next year.
I think what like just to ask a question. Say someone's coming into training, because this is what we see all the time. Someone does nothing whatsoever, and then comes in, does like a circuit class, and then they think they've got to run out and buy all this protein. Would you suggest they go and buy protein?
No, first thing would be literally, okay, let's look at your diet. Let's see where you are. Like that's just number one. Like if you're hitting your protein, everything else is structured right in order like to be in line with your goal, your specific goal, then okay, we go, okay, well, like do you need a more protein than what you're getting currently in order to get adaptation?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, like if they're eating adequate amount of protein from good natural sources and they're not doing excessive amounts of breaking down the muscle, needing that recovery, needing that repair, then no. Like they don't need to go out and buy a protein, or if they're not trying to, like they're not draining their energy stores to those last little bits where the creatine might help to push out another couple of reps or maximize that sort of thing, then no, you don't really need that. Like specific things like that. If you're not sweating enough and excuse me, if you're not sweating heaps and you're not doing things like that, then no, you probably don't need magnesium and sodium and things like that, supplements. So like there's like things we would look into for each one. And if you're getting if you've got a pretty well-rounded foundation, then usually you can get it all from a diet. Whereas if when you start getting a little bit more advanced into things, or or maybe your lifestyle doesn't allow for something, like maybe guys who that have come in before, like Ryan and that, who are labouring all day, and already have a fast metabolism and are doing exercise, like all of that, like burning 4,000 calories a day. Like I mean that's ridiculous. Like it's very hard to eat that amount if you're eating lean meats and things like that. So. If you can't tolerate, or if you say, for example, you're working all day and you don't get time to sit down and eat a big meal, and then you got to try and stuff all that in at the end of the day, like that's where during the day, protein shakes, supplementing some magnesium, sodium,
bars,
things like that. That's right, all those sort of things, and all those other things like sodium, magnesium, creatine to help like not lose as much weight and to give you a bit more energy at the end of the day to try to push through those last couple of reps, and that's where that sort of all becomes more applicable depending on your lifestyle and what you've already done in the past.
I think to consolidate it together is what the big pitfall that I think people fall into is, I'm training now, I need this. It's become like a tick in the box thing, what I need to do, but you've got to remember, consuming something is consuming calories as well. So most people don't have the foundation basis right. They're like, what do I want to do? Oh, I want to lose weight, which the majority of people want to do. I want to lose weight, so I need to go out and get protein. But protein basically is recovery, I want to lose weight, I'll go get protein, they'll drink protein, which is adding extra calories. So that's like a lean protein is around 100 calories, right? Yeah. So you have 2 of them a day, that's 200 extra calories that you're putting in. So if you haven't massively changed your diet, for a start, if you want to lose weight, you've got to be in a deficit. By adding that, you're actually making it harder. I think that's what people don't realise. Like I've literally heard people before thinking that eating more protein makes you lose weight. It's such a big misconception, but that is extra calories. I think it's realising that supplementation is to supplement. And so, if you want to put on muscle, you've got to be in that caloric surplus and positive nitrogen balance. Then it's hard to get those extra calories. Like for example, perfect case scenario for a supplement. You've maxed out your fats, you maxed out your carbs you want to eat, and you're short on your protein by like 20, 30 grams. Yeah. You grab a protein shake that is pretty much pure protein, you drink that, you hit your calories, But the percentage of people that's going to apply to is very minimal. So for someone who's doing a lot of damage to their muscle and trying to build as much muscle as possible, protein is absolutely there. But most people say circuit class and stuff, they're not going out trying to damage as much muscle as possible. If they've got a decent diet, they don't even need it.
Yeah, and I think that you'd have a response to a low dose protein, and then you bring it up as your training status, and your training age prolonged. Because if you just started training at the start, you probably don't need a really high threshold. I think like the minimum, I don't know why, I don't know for women is 0.8 to 1.2 roughly. So 0.8 is the least. It's like you can still see some really good benefits at that 0.8 level, and then it's once you start to get into your training, you become a bit more advanced. Now you're at like your 1.5 and you start to bump it up, and I think men it's probably about the same 1.8 to 2.2, around that kind of category. It's like you don't need to go straight up to like 3 times your body weight in protein. It's like it's way too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's protein. What about other supplements? Well, here's a big one. I'm going to lay on the ground. You know what I'm going to say, pre-workout.
Yeah, so, pretty much, I reckon I would be, out of the 4 of us, the only one that takes it, I think, regularly, but that's just before, It's just, I leave it just for footy performance, so the caffeine side of things.
All right, before you go to that, because I really want you to go on that, because like you're the example. Someone that haven't trained before, they're, I've got to get up early, I'm going to have a pre-workout, or even worse and more common, I need a fat burner.
No.
Can you burn fat?
It doesn't work like that.
They do not
Like, it's like the myth of, localized fat burning too. Do sit-ups, you'll lose fat here.
Well, can you even burn fat? Is it a thing? Set it on fire? Maybe if you set it on fire it'll burn, I don't know.
It's all about, like what we said in the last podcast, the inverse out, the calories. Like that's where all that's going to happen. As far as I'm concerned, pre-workouts are not needed, unless in athletic situations, perhaps
Which you'll go for a minute. But let's just, for the minute, just keep it to the absolute person. For a start, you can only deplete fat cells. You've got a fat cell, it gains fat and it depletes. You can't burn it. It doesn't magically disappear somewhere. The only way you can actually get rid of your fat cells is like liposuction, where at least you rip them out, Other than that, you're not going to get rid of your fat cells, right? You just need to deplete them. And deplete them via being in a caloric deficit. The body's going to find that deficit of energy from yourself, right? So that fat burning thing needs to just go. But what is a fat burner doing? It's just stimulants, right? So, like if we go more into that, like the adrenal repercussions of having it and stuff like that, if anyone wants to take it from there.
Well, I just kind of think of it as that like 1%. If you're already in your deficit and you want to take it and you feel good taking it, that's fine. But as we said, the deficit and things like that is the most important thing. But at the end of the day, it's like most of them are thermogenic, meaning they'll raise your body temperature and stuff and things like that, which basically raises your metabolism, which would likely getting on the ski does the same thing. I'm not too sure how that's
caffeine. The main ingredient for the thermogenesis of it is caffeine.
Yeah.
So, but you've got to think as well, there's a few elements to that. First of all, when caffeine hits your system, your body's reaction to that is to create more receptors. So more sleep receptors. So that's why someone has a coffee and after a while it doesn't really hit the spot anymore. So now they need 2 a day, 3 a day, because they create more receptors. Because basically it blocks the receptors for your sleep hormones to come in. So your body's reaction is to create more. The problem is now you have more sleep receptors than the average person, so they get more tired, so they more of a hit. But so they become desensitized to the caffeine. If you take them off it, the body will eventually start getting rid of these unneeded receptors. So it will come back to a normal stage, and then that person will be able to get a buzzy head off the one coffee a day again. Problem is these pre-workouts have such a ridiculous amount of caffeine that it's pumping the body through these receptors, so the sleep's a problem, but also your adrenaline. You release adrenaline, because then you go towards adrenal fatigue. So now you're sleepier, you've got adrenaline pumping out, which is going to crash you, and generally you get a cortisol release because it's a stress hormone. So you're synthetically triggering a stress state within your body, which is fine if you're an athlete and you want to perform as best you can for a game. But if you're doing it every day just to do a 20-30 minute workout, you're going in the wrong direction.
I think to add on to that though is like if you're an athlete, you got to be so careful because most pre-workouts, like they have stimulants or something in them. Like, you might be able to find some, but that's where like I've always gone coffee. Yeah. Like once I started learning about it all, I was like, it's not even worth the risk because there's always a risk associated with basically any supplement. But in particular, like when you look at it, the highest risk is pre-workouts because they are a stimulant. That's what they're trying to do. And there's, I don't know, if you look back, I could name just off the top of my head about 3 or 4 that I know that personally that pulled off the shelves because they had a derivative of speed or a derivative of something that...
Or even a medical
That's
product.
right. Yeah,
which a lot of these are banned in sport.
That's right. And so as soon as you take that, if you, unknowingly took it and it had it in it and then you get tested, now you're out of your sport for 6, 12 months, however long, whatever the specific sports code is. But, now... you're out, and especially if you're at a higher level like yourself, where you're getting paid for it, and you're really performing well. Like, why risk it? In my point of view, I just go. That's why I always just went.
That's
coffee.
where you can move on to like things like no-dos that are just like caffeine in them. But at the end of the day, anything you put in your body is a risk. So for people that are out there like looking for HASTA approved products like Asada, do have a website. You can log on there and look and try and make it you know. But in saying that, they can still get, if they're made in the same factory and they somehow clash over, you know, it is very, very unlikely, but if it does happen, you are at risk, you know.
Yeah, well, that's it. They always say, like, you know, they do their batch testing, and you can, what Robbie's referring to is they put out a thing saying, like, if it's been batch tested, they've literally done it and searched for every, like, known thing in your sport that
at that time,
that's right. And that doesn't mean, like Robbie said, like, that there's not going to be different stuff in a different batch, but it just means that the average batch doesn't have it in it. But they always have their tagline, which is just, you're running the risk. Like, it's on you. If you take
that
it.
happened to John Jones, didn't it? You know, John Jones from the UFC, anyone that follows that, he got tested, came up negative, and then he got tested after his fight, which was a short span, and he had a trace of whatever banned drug it was. But actually, the problem with it is that if he actually took that drug, it wouldn't have been out of his system within this window. So like, well, how's it get in? And they think it was because of something he took would have been made in a factory that created this. So he actually got trace elements of that drug in whatever creatine or whatever the hell he was taking into his. So that's the problem as well, is that like these factories that generally abroad done cheaply, they're not exactly sanitizing everything down. That's why you get some foods that go, oh, they have traces of nuts in it, because the last things through the line were nuts, and it's not like they go through scrubbing it all perfectly, you know? So that's another thing you have to worry about, is that, oh, this is approved, but the stuff that was on the line before it, was that approved, and was it cleaned off properly?
That's right. And I think another thing, if we go back to...
Something went off. Carry on, and I'll find out what that was that way.
I think if we go back to sort of like what we were talking about in terms of like its effect on the adrenal glands, but also the release of adrenaline and everything like that, the stress hormones and all of that comes with these high amounts of caffeine all in one hit, is one, like it creates for some people like medical conditions, or not so much medical conditions I guess, but things like heart palpitations, right? And a lot of times that sort of stuff scares people, which then creates anxiety, creates like, and there's all these like byproducts that of both emotional and mental state that like then carry on from there, and you know, like that could go like way left field and end up with some like hard issue. Not commonly going to go that far into it, but you know, it does run the risk then of musical cameras.
It's because they're all pretty much the same camera. And so like they time out around the same time and run out of battery whenever they want. Okay, carry on, and I'll sort that out.
But yeah, and so I think that's where like it's a bit of a danger too, or at least like, is it worth like running the risk of creating anxiety for yourself and things like that?
Well, that's even like I know it's like an inverse U, the arousal control. It's like with caffeine, and it's like if you go over that certain point, you become agitated, fidgety, and you get that anxiety and stuff. And then it's kind of like a sweet spot that you do have to play around with, especially for, like as you said, I think most of them have a minimum of 300 milligrams of caffeine in them, which is like equivalent of 5 or 6 cups of coffee. And so if you think you've had coffee in that day, or you have it later that night, and then you're having that, and then you're like, oh, why is my sleep bad? I would be focusing on those things such as your diet and your sleep, and then using them as that 1%. Or if you're really tired, and using them like once a month or something like that. Otherwise, focus and put it into your sleep. Even you desensitized yourself to caffeine recently.
Absolutely, that's it. Like a natural, my source of caffeine always is coffee. Like, and once I know for myself, like what we were just saying, once I get to 3 coffees a day, I'm like, all right, I've got to desensitize, because especially when that's not giving me a buzz. Like, I'm like, okay, my body's, like you said, with the sleep receptors, like my body's not adjusting to it anymore. I need to resensitize, go off for a week or 2 completely, just go cold turkey with it, and then you come back and then start again basically, and then you just build back up. And I enjoy my coffee, so it's more of a social thing as well on that side of things. I think
something that needs to be said in here as well is that we're not the large majority percentage of the population. And you've got to think, for anyone that's watching, goes, oh well, they do it, but
Jacob's up
clean diet as well. He's got a clean diet, he alkalizes his body, he drinks lots of water, he trains every single day. He's a generally fit, healthy person with a low body fat percentage, you know. The majority of people, the majority of people don't eat super healthy. They don't get all their macros in. They don't get their macros right. So they're generally in a big surplus with a very acidic diet, probably with alcohol involved. And now we're talking about these people adding lots of stimulants and lots of acidic compounds, synthetic compounds to their diet. So I think that needs to be applied as well for anyone that's listening to this, is that where is your health? line right now, it's not an equal playground for everyone. If you're pretty healthy and you're on the ball and you go out, have a night out, go and eat some stuff or what have you, you can do it. But if you're doing this constantly, you've got to be real careful because there's only so much your body can take before these problems start coming out, you know?
A perfect kind of example of that is I would know guys who would take like the caffeine as a supplement and in a pre-workout before a game, and then they go out and drink that night and have like vodka and mother, and by the end of like their 24 hours, they've had like over 1,000 milligrams of caffeine, which like is just through the roof, like, and heart palpitations and stuff like that is really bad for you. And then they wonder why they can't recover and things like that. So it's, if you're worrying about your supplements, you've probably got a few questions I think to ask before you actually said, should I be having a supplement?
On that, exactly, that's one of the key things is asking the questions. Like, find somebody who knows. Don't just ask like, you know, old mate over here, so you take that. Don't assume they know because they're taking it. Like, you know, like there's a lot of people that are in that same boat. Like, find someone who is qualified. So find someone who you trust in that area, that field, who knows about the stuff to ask the questions.
Because even if you do talk about like the different supplements, like you look at a protein shake, and we used Ryan as an example before, it's like, he can probably have a high, you know, mass gainer, which has got fats and carbohydrates because he's burning so many calories. If you go, I'm on this one, and then you start being in a surplus, which we spoke about before, it kind of is completely different for someone else that's trying to lose weight and might just need a lean protein with none of the carbs and fats attached. So
I think that's
you do
the
need
spot on.
It's just having that individual basis, because something that one person might take, for example, we use Ryan again, for example, is this, for anyone who's going, who the hell is this Ryan guy? He has an active job, he trains like a hit or weights, and then he goes and does like games at night, and obviously he burns like minimum 4,000 calories, which is ridiculous.
Just about every day,
So he can get away with say having like a high mass gainer kind of thing with a lot of calories in. We train. We keep really healthy and a lot of active, but not as active as him. So if we had that, we'd probably just put on a load of weight. You know what I mean? So like, and that's with like you know, a lower percentage of the population, for example. So if you took someone else that went up to Ryan, for example, what are you taking? He goes, I'm taking this stuff, it's great. And they're already eating in the surplus and not if it's under check, take that. They've got so much body fat.
It's that link that people put with things. Like we've spoken in those other podcasts about like the link to people on Instagram and all that. There's a reason that they get the guy with his shirt off, massive chest, like 6-pack, to go, buy this, because they just straight away like, you know, link that to like, if I take that, I'm going to look like that. It doesn't work that way. And it, like you said, individual basis. Every time you go to take something, you've got to assess it for yourself. Even your diet, like, you know, diet, you got to assess where you're at. What's your lifestyle like? What are the factors that affect you, and what are you trying to get out of it? And at the end of the day, you always round it back to what's your goal. Like, if your goal isn't to like create heaps of muscle, and then you're not looking to be an elite athlete and all that, you don't need to start worrying about half of this stuff. You know, you might just, if anything at all in terms of supplements, you might just be looking at some of the things like fish oils, or things that maybe if you're in your diet, you know, you don't eat a lot of fish, you don't eat a lot of those good fats,
greens,
greens, like things like that. That's where maybe you look at some of those. Obviously, still the best is the natural. But if you know that you don't eat that, you're struggling to get those in terms of health, that's maybe all you need to look at, not these performance enhancing type ones, you know, like it's
even I remember I used to be a big amino acids fan, like and then didn't until I started looking at the research that your body actually, you know, uses a lot of and recycles a lot of its own amino acids that you probably, if you have enough protein, isoleucine in like red meats and things like that, chicken, you don't actually need to have an amino acid supplement. But I still liked having it with my water because it tasted nice and it made me get more water in. So there wasn't a side to it that I thought, oh well, it's not completely unbeneficial, but for say $60 for that, like you could spend that good quality foods, greens, veg, your lean meats, and put that $60 towards that.
Absolutely.
And I reckon you get a bigger.
Because I think a lot of people go, healthy food's so expensive. And the same people will go and spend X amount, 100 on beer at the weekend. You know, we just, and I'm not saying don't give it up or whatever. I mean, we don't drink. Most of us don't drink.
I'm Irish.
Fuck the Irish ones. But like, and even then you don't drink all the time, right? Just excessively when you do.
Well, we won't know.
We don't get a clip up here of us stopping the traffic.
We won't know because you won't invite us.
Don't start.
Like, I'm not saying don't drink, But do you know what? I'll just stop it right there. I hate the way that you have to put these disclaimers on things in this day and age. Like I say, I'm not saying this, but well, the real answer, I'm going to be completely truthful. If you want to be 100% the best on your health, don't drink.
Yeah.
But if you do want to drink, then you have to take into ownership, this has health repercussions. That's why I don't drink. I don't drink because I value my health, my fitness, and being around as much as I can for my family. I'm not saying that if you do this again, disclaim you have to do these days, doesn't mean that you don't mean that, but it is happening. That you are damaging your DNA, you are damaging your health by drinking. And I think in this society we've got right now, it's too pink and fluffy to the point where people are eating so bad because, like as I said, you can have a cigarette packet with someone literally dying on the front, and that's all right, and smoke because it's become so everyone's so desensitized to everything. It's so fluffy that I live a little and all this. You will live a little if you do a lot of this stuff. The frustrating thing is that people don't reflect on it that way until something pops up. Then, oh, my friend just got this or my friend just got that. It's like, look at the lifestyle they're putting in. And yes, there's always the anomalies, but the majority of it are things like the interview that we had the other day. The things that stack up and give clues that they're coming. So if you want to drink and you want to take that risk, which is how it should be said, do it, but realise it has those repercussions. But what I'm saying with that alcohol is that like, people spend lots of money on that and then go, oh, healthy food's too expensive. Because it doesn't have to be done with pesticides and stuff that, you know, to make it in mass because there's so many people in this world. So it's usually smaller local farmers that are trying to keep their doors open, their lights on. So yes, it is more expensive, but are you spending that money on something that is adversely affecting your health? And would it be beneficial for you and your family and your life if you redirected those funds towards something that's potentially better for your health?
A week's load of chicken could be $25, I reckon. Like if you know,
yeah, absolutely,
if you spread it across your lunches, and it's like everyone goes out for a meal at lunch and spends $25. So it comes back to your priorities, really. Like
100%. We got an organic local produce provider who's actually up here. I think it's in Humpty Doo. That comes and does a delivery every week. Yes, it's slightly more expensive, but we actually get to meet the owner. Really nice person. It's organic food. Do you want to taste the difference in like you have a steak, and you watch a steak from Woolies. By the way, you're not supporting local if you go in Woolies. You're supporting the big companies that will just take advantage of the small ones. You cook something there, chicken, beef, or anything. The amount of water that comes out of it, the amount of hormones put in it is unreal. Because whatever it eats, whatever hormones that meat absorbs, you absorb. But then you have the organic meat, and you realise this cooks completely different. It tastes completely different. A load of water doesn't fall out of it. That's not normal.
It's like eggs. I've always found that with organic eggs. If you ever like had someone who had chickens at home and you went and like picked one out and ate them, like, how nice is this yolk?
Yeah.
It's just so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah. But just before we get too far away from the alcohol though, while we're on that, is things like that, there's heaps of them, but if we're staying with the alcohol, it's one thing to remember in terms of like bringing it back to supplements a bit, is that will stop you absorbing nutrients, right? So if you have that and you have heaps of that along with all these other things when you're drinking and whatever, basically that's going to hinder the absorption of key nutrients. And if you're, say, having drinks several nights a week, or if you're doing things like that, smoking, all of those sort of things, it hinders the absorption of key nutrients. And then from there, that's where you can then create deficiencies, and now you think the key to success or whatever is going and grabbing supplements to fix that. That's not, no, just stop that, like, you know what I mean? Or structure things a bit differently to then get the most natural way of absorbing those nutrients. And we could go through 50 different benefits of it, but like the key ones are financial. Like if you stop some of those things, I think it's worked out the other day that if you smoke like a pack a week or something of cigarettes, it ends up being something like $10,000 you would save in a year or something.
More now.
Or more? Like I don't know. I have no idea, but it's something like that. Like it's ridiculous. It's just like, wow, that's a car. Or something, like or something like that. Like you can literally go and buy like a decent car for $10,000. Like it's unreal.
That's insane. And you got to remember as well that alcohol it takes metabolization, and it's a toxin, so it always prioritises in terms like
that's what I was going to ask. Am I right in saying it's detox, like in detox basically, and you're worried about that before your liver can process it all? then it's got to worry about your food after.
Well, that's the
right?
thing is your liver's the same place that metabolizes, say, lipolysis.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to break down body fat, as soon as you drink alcohol,
Stop.
it will prioritize the toxicity of the alcohol. So 1 unit is around 1 hour. So
Yeah.
1 beer is around 3 hours, 3 units.
So
So
you've got to
that's
wait
3
all
hours
that
that you
time.
cannot burn body fat. But so you think a couple of cheeky beers, 6 hours, you shut it down, even if you've got everything else perfect. But the problem is as well, say if you've got fat that needs metabolization, and it's prioritizing a toxin, so we can get fatty liver. Because it doesn't disappear, it waits for metabolization and settles, and then you end up with fatty liver, so it has implications there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a whole podcast itself.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
literally,
Maybe we'll do one on that.
Alcohol and the effects of
I'm gonna
alcohol.
love that one.
Yeah, I used to have gallbladder issues like
Unsubscribe.
from drinking alcohol too early. Like when I was 18, used to go out all the time. I was still fit and healthy, but you could go out and stuff, and then that's why I kind of pulled it right back and just kind of do it socially on occasions and birthdays and try and limit it as much as possible because it's so it was so bad, and then I was like, imagine.
I think we've all been there, right?
Yeah,
And
everyone
I
has
think-
it.
I was talking to Satbir, I talked to Satbir after our interview. I think his camera's gone. And we were saying about DNA damage, and they're saying one of the big damages of DNA is alcohol, and how we've got NAD. We've got NAD in our body, and how the reason we don't get hangovers when we're younger is because we're so full of NAD. And a good indicator of having depleted levels of NAD is when we start getting a hangover. So how scary is that? So when you're smashing this alcohol, it's literally aging your DNA to the point where you can't produce NAD properly, and so you start getting hangovers because of that. So if you're going, oh shit, I started getting a hangover around 28, well that's the point where your body was going, I'm starting to age a little bit now, Some people are younger, they're like 23, and just go, oh, I can't do it anymore. And that means you've smashed your DNA so much. So think the implications of that, because NAD is what's replenishing and rebuilding your DNA. And so if you can't effectively do that, it's all right now. Let's fast forward 40, 50 years when your body's struggling with everything. Whereas if we didn't do that whatsoever and it wasn't culturally acceptable to live a little and have that, we would literally live healthier, less illness, less disease, longer, healthier skin, eyes, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So it's all good and proper going, oh, it's culture and oh, you're boring and all this kind of thing. But really, when you're older, it has massive implications. This comes from someone that's just like everyone else when I was younger, smashed the alcohol. Until I started getting hangovers.
Yeah, that was even Dad when he went through his 50s, and he said that everyone in his age group was really struggling from the effects of alcohol, because he used to say that going up. He's like, I know you're having your fun, but eventually you got to stop it because it's not good for you. It is a toxin at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's just a legalized drug.
Yeah. So of course a lot of attacks.
Yeah.
So there we go. There was supplements that went on to alcohol. I bet it'd be the least watched one. I watch halfway through and go. I don't want to
Laughing
fit.
fit.
Exactly, yeah, hopefully I get it through. Here's the laughing fit highlights.
Who let the horse in?
Who let the horse in? Who let the horse in? Ba, 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 ba. Oh! Oh, ba, 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 ba.
Chasing me again.